No one should feel obligated to use their sewing skills and free time for anything they don't want to use them for. However, if funds are tight, you might decide to look into how sewing can save or even make some money. In this episode, you'll hear from some members of the Check Your Thread Patreon community and subscribers to the Check Your Thread newsletter about how they save money and also make money with sewing. If it's something you've been thinking about, this episode is bound to provide some inspiration. So please stick around a minute and we'll get stuck in. Welcome to Check Your Thread, the podcast that will help you sew more sustainably. My name's Zoe and I'm obsessed with sewing. I've been blogging about it for over 18 years and I'm the creator and host of the popular handmade wardrobe challenge Me Made May. But, like many people, I've become increasingly concerned about the climate and ecological crises, and I'm looking at the way that my lifestyle contributes to them. So in this podcast, I'll be nerding out about making clothes whilst exploring how to minimise the negative impact that it may have. I really hope you'll join me in this journey. Hello, lovely! How are you doing? Thanks for clicking play on this episode today. What are you sewing at the moment? I've been spending most of my sewing time and energy lately sewing samples for Fabric Godmother in advance of the Stitch Festival in London, which would have been the weekend just gone if you're listening to this episode the week that it's released. Which is kind of ironic because this episode is about just this, sewing to make money. I did also manage to squeeze in a couple of other quick projects, a stretch lace top for myself and some swimming trunks for my son and some undies for my big kid. So there are no new patrons to thank this week. However, I do want to say huge thanks to existing patron Sandra for upping the amount of their support. Thank you, Sandra. I'm always so happy when an existing patron increases the amount of their monthly support because it means that they are continuing to enjoy and get value from the podcast and also from the lovely Check Your Thread Patreon community. So if you're interested in getting involved in any of that, please go to patreon.com/checkyourthread. Right, so let's just get stuck into this week's episode. Big thanks to everyone who submitted a response to my prompts. The prompts were, who you are and where you are in the world. In what ways do you think sewing saves you money? Also, in what ways do you make or have you made money through sewing? Pretty simple, but the responses were really interesting and I hope that this episode generates more thought and discussion. If you have any thoughts or experiences that you'd like to share having heard this episode, please get in touch with me. You can do that via email, zoe@checkyourthread.com, or you can find me and send me a message on Instagram @checkyourthread. So there are another couple of episodes that explore the topic of sewing and saving money from different angles. They are episode 57, Can Sewing Save You Money? And episode 58, Sewing on a Budget. And those are linked in the show notes. So this is the last episode for a couple of weeks because it's the Easter break and I'll be home with the kids. But I've already got a couple of fantastic and super interesting episodes lined up for you for after the Easter holiday. So until then, please just take properly good care of yourself. And I'm going to try for once to take my own advice here and do the same. Have a great few weeks and enjoy. As you know, as soon as anyone finds out you can sew, the clock's ticking before someone says, you should sell that, or can you hem my trousers? It's usually well-meaning, but the general assumption seems to be that we should be monetising our hobby and skills, which of course we absolutely should not do if we don't want to. We are completely entitled to keep our skills and passion for our own use only, to make the things we want to make, when we want to make them, and how we want to make them for ourselves. But with so many individuals and families' budgets getting increasingly stretched, it might be on your mind to see how sewing might save you money or even how you might be able to make money from sewing. I really hate the idea of anyone feeling pressured to sew due to financial constraints, but I sew myself for money pretty regularly, although of course I'd rather be sewing my own projects. So although it's not ideal, I understand how being able to sew to make some extra funds can offer a sense of security and like you have options. So I wanted to pick the brains of the awesome hive mind that is the Check Your Thread patrons and Check Your Thread newsletter subscribers to find out how others are saving and making money through sewing, so that if you have to or want to do so yourself, you can get inspired and feel empowered to do it in a way that works best for you. Make sure you listen to the end because the last contribution lists so many ways that you can make money using sewing skills. So if that's something you're interested in doing now or in the future, there's likely to be some ideas in this whole episode, but particularly the last submission, that you might have not thought of.
Hi Zoe, my name is Bonnie and I am in Michigan in the United States. When I first got your email prompt, I thought, Well, I probably can't contribute too much to that conversation because I spend too much on sewing. I actually just did my budget for this year and found out how much I spent on fabric and patterns last year, and the consensus was way too much. But I thought about it some more and I eventually came up with this response. I save money through sewing because it enables me to make and wear the pieces that I would absolutely not be able to afford otherwise. So, for context, I am in a very privileged position. My spouse makes very good money and covers all of our cost of living, and I homeschool our 3 children and work part-time. Sewing is my hobby, and I spent about $1,500 on fabric and patterns last year. I am attempting to reduce that amount this year and stick to a stricter budget. But last year was my first full year of sewing, and I was very excited and I wanted to make absolutely everything. I wear mostly linen and wool. Those are the fabrics that I find to be the most comfortable and the most durable for my lifestyle, and also the most quote-unquote sustainable. I know that sustainability and fabric is very complicated, but those are the fabrics that I wear the most of. And I am between a size 16 and a size 20 in a US women's size chart. I don't know how that translates to European or other sizes around the world. That's just the size chart I'm most familiar with. And that means that if I were to pursue 100% linen dresses like I like wearing, or wool trousers, or wool cardigans and things from other companies, I would be spending between $250 to $400 or $500 depending on the company. And also, I fall outside the size charts for a lot of those companies. I love Sandra floor dresses. They have just beautiful dresses, really lovely craftsmanship. They go up to what they call a 4XL, but I am still outside that size chart with my waist measurement. And so even if I could afford those dresses, I would not fit into them. And a lot of wool clothing is even more expensive because wool is expensive and the production of it is expensive. And then you add, quality craftsmanship. Of course, those clothes are going to be very expensive. And I'm outside the size chart on a lot of companies that make wool trousers and other wool items. So the way that I save money by sewing is that I'm able to dress myself in the way that I like to dress and be perceived in the world without spending as much as I would if I were buying these ready to wear. Even though I'm in a very privileged position and I spend a lot on my sewing, I'm still saving a lot if you were to compare buying those items ready to wear. I have made money sewing just 2 times, and I don't think it's going to be something that I'm able to do. The first time was I took in a pair of pants for a relative and they gave me $25, which was lovely. And the second time I took in some cheerleading uniforms for the local high school, which was very difficult. I did make $50 a uniform, which was really generous of the coach to offer me. But I hadn't counted on the fact that, of course, cheerleading uniforms are made of very, very stretchy synthetic fibers, and I don't have an overlocker or serger. And so I ended up in this time crunch and just very stressful situation with all these bobbin thread nests because my machine was attempting to just give up. And I did get through it, and the client was happy with the product, but I decided I was not going to do it again because it was definitely not a professional finish by the time I was done with it. So that is my perspective on this topic, and I hope that I was able to contribute to this conversation in a helpful way. Thank you so much for everything you do with the podcast. It is just a joy to listen, and it also challenges me each and every week, and I really appreciate that.
This one is from Amanda Jane Ogden, who lives in the seaside town of Ramsgate in Kent in the UK. Firstly, sewing saves me money because I can use recycled fabric in my artworks. Because quilting uses small amounts of fabric pieced together, I can keep my leftovers and make scrappy quilts. I shop at the excellent scrap store in my hometown. I look out for usable fabric in charity shop garments and once made a whole quilt entirely from 4 men's shirts. Secondly, because I can alter upcycled clothing to suit or fit me better, and I can add to my wardrobe at very low cost. For example, a black winter skirt costing £3.50 shortened to fit me, and a pinky purple print cotton handmade blouse costing £5.50 taken in to fit me. I make money by sewing, by selling quilt and sewing patterns online for items that I've designed and made, for example my best-selling Christmas tree skirt, by designing quilt patterns for magazines and sewing the sample quilt for photography, for example my Love Grows quilt in issue 69 of Make Modern magazine publishing today, by making quilts to commission, for example a memory quilt constructed from stretchy baby clothes, by making art quilts to hang on the wall which I sell on Etsy and craft markets in Kent, by teaching people one-to-one how to quilt, for example the Quilt in a Day which is in person and Make Your First Quilt which is online, and by teaching people one-to-one to get started using a sewing machine and sewing skills.
Oh, hi Zoe, it's just Catherine from Bury. Had to think about that. It's just Catherine from Bury. Letting you know about ways that sewing has saved me money. I'm not sure this has made me money very much, but I probably haven't bought any underwear, knickers I should say, for many years. 10 years, 8 years, something like that. And although I've made my own, which obviously isn't free, I was sort of thinking that it still costs the same to buy a pack of knickers in Marks and Spencer's. Or I used to buy like 3 for £2 in Topshop. That's how long ago it was. But I was hearing that the price is much higher now. So I actually think probably buying like half a metre of 140 wide jersey and making like 3 or 4 pairs of pants out of that, that's pretty good value. Yeah, jersey is like half a metre, it's probably like £5, £7, something like that. You can get 3 pairs of underwear for that. Obviously there's the elastic, but Scrap Store Leeds is my new revelation in buying good value knicker elastic and, fold over elastic and stuff. Yeah, I think I've actually been saving money this whole time and didn't even realise. See you later.
This is Martha and I live in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I think sewing saves me money mainly because it makes me think about what I'm purchasing. So I don't buy clothes that are nearly but not quite good enough. If I find something that doesn't quite fit or that seems to be poor quality or isn't quite the colour that I want, I now think, oh, I could make that. Of course, my capacity to actually make it is much less than my capacity to buy things. So it takes me ages to actually make the thing that I think I need. So I end up with vastly fewer clothes than I might have otherwise. And I think that's the real way that sewing saves me money. Obviously, fabric can be quite expensive. So if I were making clothes at the rate that I might have been buying clothes, it wouldn't save me money at all. But I think because it makes me stop and think about purchases more, that's the way that it saves money for me. I have no stats on that, but I have a smaller wardrobe, so that attests to it. Thank you. Great show. Bye.
This one is from Caro from Hertfordshire in the UK. Knowing how to make my clothes saves me money when looking for something I particularly want. For example, I bought a skirt second-hand that was a style I particularly liked. It was too big, so I altered it to fit and used the excess fabric to patch a little hole I discovered. I've also re-elasticated socks that I needed. The socks were given to me unused, but the elastic had perished. A YouTube search showed me how to put elastic around the inside, so now I have new socks.
Hi Zoe. I'm Hannah from Stitching Kitchen and I'm based in Brackley, Northamptonshire, which is in pretty much the middle of the UK. So you've asked how sewing saves me money. And I guess the best way is through the fact that I can repair things rather than buying new. I haven't bought any personal clothing for quite a while. And I'm also reducing the amounts of new stuff that gets bought for my kids as well. I make most of my own wardrobe now, and I've been trying to be sort of the next phase in that is being more intentional, looking at my lifestyle, doing a wardrobe review, making sort of more concrete plans about what garments and cloths I want to make from. My kids are encouraged to buy from charity or from kilo sales because we can, between us, make repairs and alterations. Now, the next question, making money. That's a big one. Yes, I do make money from sewing. I set up my own business, which is Stitching Kitchen, back in 2017, and it's morphed and changed a lot over that time. I got back into sewing through textile art, and I wanted to share some of the love that I'd received through making in company and sharing skills. And I'd found that through my local Embroiderers Guild branch. So, as was attested in last week's episode, making money as a small business can be really tricky. I don't take a wage from the business every month, but I've got patterns and fabric on tap whenever I need to make anything for myself. And a lot of those then end up as example garments in the studio as well. Stitching Kitchen does, however, help other families because we have freelance tutors and my admin support are all freelance as well. So we do help sustain other families too. So, what started out as a business to really share my love and skills of making with textiles now has developed into a business which is doing a lot more dressmaking and pattern cutting courses and various different textile-based crafts. And due to the fact that there are less and less haberdashery shops locally, we are now a rather well-stocked haberdashery with dressmaking fabric, and we also sell and service sewing machines too. So yes, sewing does help me save money and make money.
This is from Fiona in Germany. This is a topic I think about a lot. Being in the fortunate position of having a house, job and enough to eat is, of course, not everybody's situation, and it's something that I'm grateful for. That said, I want or need a creative hobby to balance from my very technical job. My main hobbies in this vein are sewing and knitting, which can and do cost quite a lot of money. However, almost everything that I make is an item of clothing that I wear and would have had to buy otherwise. I spend very little money on clothes. My best example is knitting related. I like to knit in front of the telly because otherwise I get fidgety. I like knitting socks. The wool for a pair of socks costs about 5 to 20 euros, about 4 to 15 pounds. But on the other hand, my husband and I have not bought any socks for about 8 years because they are much easier to darn than bought socks. Following the episode with Shams Eldin Rogers, I have been keeping track of how much I have spent on sewing, knitting and craft things this year. I haven't set myself a spending limit, but I am intrigued to see how much I spend and whether it's less than I thought or I will get a massive shock. What I think I'm trying to say is that I mainly sew for the enjoyment that I get, which is a luxury, but something useful comes out of it, so I justify it.
Hi Zoe, love your podcast, and fun fact, I have a small parrot and he also loves the sound of your voice, so sometimes I stream your podcast just for him. I'm Sandra and I live in the smallest city of Brockville in Ontario, Canada. There's not much shopping in my city, but there's a huge crafting and indie business culture. Everyone seems to make or grow something to sell, and I am no exception. I sell beginner sewing patterns on Etsy, and I dabble in lots of other projects too. On your episode about personality types, I strongly identified as an obliger. I have tried pretty much everything that anyone has ever said, you should totally sell this. And I've just been sewing for over 40 years. So I compiled a big list of ways to make money sewing. I'll run through the list, and at the end, I'll come back to why digital patterns are my favorite. Number 1, sewing alterations. This is a great one to do occasionally if you just need some extra money for something specific. You can just let friends and family know that you are taking alterations. Know what you can do and know what you want to do based on your skill level and the value for your time. So for example, pant hems are a little bit boring, but they're quick and easy. Something more complicated like zippers on coats, you might find that rewarding or you might hate it. And also a note, you can charge a surcharge for dirty clothing if you state this in advance to protect yourself from people bringing you dirty things to work on. Number 2, bridal alterations. Demand has dropped a bit with more casual weddings, but there's still a need. If you have advanced sewing skills, contact local formal wear stores or look for wedding-related businesses that will take your business info. If you want to learn more alterations, Sparkle Sewing on YouTube is a great resource, and it's also just a nice background watch for the sewing room. Number 3, cosplay. If you do cosplay, you could also sew costumes for other people. I recently made a Grinch costume for a Santa parade that was really fun, and I know that it will get worn over and over again. You can discuss sustainable options with your clients, such as thrifted or stashed materials, or you can have them provide the materials themselves. Number 4, upcycling. You can find a pattern that has few seams and is repeatable, like aprons or tie front blouses. A recent commission that I did included adding scarf sleeves to band t-shirts. A note about pricing your work. If you take a commission job, it can be easy to undercut yourself, especially on a one-off unique project or an upcycled item where the materials were cheap. Here is my gut check tip. When you have a price in mind, ask yourself if you would be okay doing 5 to 10 more at that price. You'll either feel excited if the pay is fair or resentful if you'd be losing money on bigger orders. Number 5, partner with another small business to offer an add-on for their products. If you're a book lover, offer bookmarks to a bookstore. If you work with seniors, you could make adaptive items like scarf bibs for seniors that need help feeding. Or you could sell floor turtles for an eco-friendly cleaning supplies business. If you haven't seen floor turtles, definitely Google them. Follow your own interests and connections. Number 6, join a makers collective. It's like a permanent craft show in a shop. These may work on commission, where the store gets a percentage of your sales, or by monthly rentals for a fee for a shelf, where you pay monthly and receive all your profits from the sales. You can sell sewing craft kits or supplies. I make up kits with my sewing patterns and supplies needed. For example, a printed copy of a pattern for a utility apron with the zippers and D-rings for 2 aprons. I also offer scrap packs with coordinating fabrics, trims, and buttons, a lot of it upcycled. These can be used for visible mending, small craft projects, or doll clothes, etc. Number 8, sell at a pop-up craft market. Some craft shows will let you share a table with a friend so that you need less inventory to fill a table, and it's just a fun way to hang out with your friend. Number 9, teach sewing. You can offer private lessons or group workshops. Again, some great advice online for starting out, but a group of 4 to 6 is probably a good size to start with, and start with a simpler project than you would expect for their first class. Host at home and have less overhead, or you can work in a public space and you maybe pay a rental fee. It's also popular here now to have crafting nights at coffee shops and cafes. You can teach a hand sewing project like needlebooks. Number 10, this one is not directly income, but I really recommend it. Volunteer in your community. It is the best way to build word of mouth and credibility. I volunteer at my public library, and in social media, when somebody asks about sewing, my name will always come up, Sandra from the library. Lastly, I also promise to come back to digital sewing patterns. Selling patterns may not be as intimidating as it sounds. There are so many resources now for designing and selling patterns. YouTube channels like Pattern Lab London and Lydia Sews offer great tutorials, and there are free drafting programs like Affinity and Inkscape if you don't want to pay subscription fees for the big brand programs. For small patterns like stuffies and keychains, you can even scan a neatly hand-drawn sketch pattern and sell it online. People are actually really drawn to imperfect photography and illustration now because they know they're getting a real product, not AI mess. Yes, there are AI patterns on Etsy now. What I love about selling digital sewing patterns is the complete creative control, no timeline, no investment on inventory, and very little clutter for my sewing room. So that's my big list of ways to make money sewing. I hope that encourages people to see that there are ways to make money sewing that also build community and align with sustainable values. I look forward to hearing others' ideas.
Thanks so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode and are left feeling inspired. For more info about the podcast, including show notes for this and every episode, head to checkyourthread.com. I'd love to hear from you, so if you have any comments, questions or ideas for future episodes, please get in touch by emailing zoe@checkyourthread.com or find me on Instagram @checkyourthread. Massive thanks to Patrick Potter for production support, to Sylvia Seller for the awesome logo design, and to Simon at Palm Skin Productions for the music. This ad-free podcast would not be possible without listener support, so if you feel you are able, please consider signing up to the Check Your Thread Patreon. For the equivalent of buying me a coffee each month, you'll be making it possible to continue producing regular episodes. Links can be found in the show notes and on the website checkyourthread.com. I hope you'll listen again next week. Until then, take care. Bye!